Hey everyone, hope your day is going well. I just checked out a video about the dangers of the 1950s. Now we will check out this video talking about how the 1950s might have been the perfect decade. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not in the US. I wasn't alive in the 1950s, so I can only read about it or watch videos or listen to or read some comments of viewers that were actually around or know stories firsthand from people that lived through the 50s. Let's go and see what the reasoning behind this is.
Growing up in the 1950s was a unique experience. It was marked by a blend of innocence, imagination, and cultural transformation. Daily life was full of foundational values that shaped an entire generation. So let's explore what it truly meant to be a kid in the 1950s, an idyllic time that still resonates with us. Remember your childhood neighborhood back in the 1950s? Of course you do. The streets were filled with children playing outside, where imagination reigned and friendships blossomed.
Sounds great.
Playing cowboys and Indians, building a clubhouse, and cruising downtown on your bike wasn't just encouraged, it was a way of life. Children made the most of their surroundings by engaging their imagination, exploring just about everywhere, and playing random sports until the streetlights flickered on. Toys
That's
during this
depending
time
on where you live, really. If you live in the suburbs, but if you live in a big city or something, it's different. Even in the US, if you live in somewhere else in a different part of the world in 1950s, I don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, if you live in this house here, jeez, that's not the house that I grew up in.
reflected both optimism and new creativity. Simple
Oh.
hula hoops became a sensation, captivating
Yeah.
children as they
Love it.
challenged each other to keep it spinning around their waist. Barbie dolls, introduced in 1959, quickly exploded onto the scene, allowing girls to dress and play with figures that moved, rather than just flat paper dolls. Meanwhile, traditional building sets like Lincoln Logs and Erector sets were still going strong, encouraging hands-on engineering concepts, fostering
Whoa, that's
problem-solving
cool.
skills. The simple joys of time spent outside with friends and the popular toys that came along was central to any 1950s childhood. Education in the 1950s was characterized by a structured and formal approach. Schools focused on the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic, emphasizing foundational skills that children would carry into adulthood. Classrooms were often filled with rows of desks, and teachers wielded authority, instilling discipline and a strong work ethic in their students. The experience was marked by a sense of respect for educators and an understanding of the importance of education. Extracurricular activities provided an outlet for creativity and personal development. Sports, music, and arts were vital components of school life. Many children participated in scouting organizations, where they learned
Right.
valuable skills and fostered teamwork and leadership. School events
Yeah. I'm not good with that. We have that here too. We have different organizations doing that. You go on Saturday, and I did it once as a kid, and it didn't go well. I'm not great with authority. Oh no. For me, just playing on the streets was much more my
School
thing.
events, such as science
friends.
fairs and talent shows, offered opportunities for students to showcase their talents and build confidence.
Yeah, that's cool.
Rediscover your past by digitizing your preserve. Family dynamics in the 1950s were typically nuclear, characterized by a breadwinner father and a homemaker mother. The family unit was a source of stability and support. Dinner time often meant gathering around the table, sharing stories about the day, and enjoying home-cooked meals. This routine fostered a sense of togetherness and tradition, creating bonds that would last a lifetime. The values of the time emphasized traditional roles, patriotism, and community involvement. Children learned the importance of respect, hard work, and responsibility, often through the examples set by their parents. Community events such as church gatherings and neighborhood picnics were common, reinforcing the idea of belonging and social responsibility.
And that's nice. Those are the great things about it. But of course, there's a different side of that coin depending on where you are on that ladder that was, very prevalent, in those times around the world. So, or depending on which group you belong to right now, or you identify with, or you know, it might have been not the perfect decade depending on where you are on that spectrum, right? So you might have been more on the oppressed side, or whatever it may be. Not being able to be true to yourself, at least not in public, and all of that stuff. Uh, so yeah, there's of course you can romanticize a lot of the things in the past, even in your own past. Your brain is very good at cherry picking great things or bad things, and sometimes you only focus on one side and never two sides of that story. I go through periods in my life that I think, oh yeah, look at all this great stuff, and then I can look at the same period and only look at the negative side, depending on my mood and stuff. So yeah, there's always good and bad.
Social responsibility. The 1950s saw the emergence
Hey,
of a vibrant youth
the
culture,
king.
heavily influenced by music, film, and television. Rock and roll burst onto the scene, with artists
Hell
like Elvis
yeah.
Presley and Chuck Berry becoming cultural
Ooh,
icons.
now
The
that's
energy of this new
epic.
music captured the spirit of rebellion and freedom that resonated with teenagers, setting the stage for the cultural revolutions to come.
Oh,
Television began to take
that
hold
I
as
wish
a
I was
primary
around.
source of entertainment, transforming family dynamics and leisure activities. Shows like The Mickey Mouse Club and Leave It to Beaver shaped cultural norms and provided a window into the idealized American life. Families gathered around their TV sets, creating shared experiences that bridged generations. Movies
That's
also played a
nice.
significant role in shaping childhood experiences. Drive-in theaters became popular, offering
That's
families
wild.
a
You had that
unique
in the
way to
50s,
enjoy
man.
films under the stars.
You can't
Disney
imagine
animated
that over here.
classics delighted audiences, captivating the imaginations of children and adults alike. The stories told in these films often contained valuable life lessons wrapped in humor and adventure. Fashion in the 1950s reflected the optimism of the era. Children's clothing was practical yet stylish, with boys often wearing slacks and button-up shirts, while girls donned dresses and skirts. The iconic look of poodle skirts and saddle shoes became popular among young girls, symbolizing the playful spirit of youth. Parents also embraced fashion trends, with mothers often sporting elegant dresses and fathers donning suits for special occasions. The emphasis on appearance and propriety underscored the social norms of the time, influencing how families presented themselves to the world. While the 1950s lacked the digital technology that defines today's world, it was a time of significant advancements. Families communicated through landline telephones and wrote letters, emphasizing the importance of personal connection. The telephone was a lifeline, allowing families to stay in touch with relatives and friends,
That's
while letter
nice, man.
writing became a cherished way to maintain long-distance relationships. Transportation also evolved, with cars becoming more common in American households. Families often took road trips, exploring national parks and
That's cool.
attractions across the
Love
country.
that.
The open road symbolized freedom and adventure,
Yeah.
creating opportunities for bonding and exploration.
Nothing but the
The
road.
1950s laid the groundwork for significant social changes. While many families enjoyed a sense of stability and prosperity, the seeds of the civil rights movement were beginning to take root. Children may have been aware of the emerging social issues, though the daily realities of life often kept them focused on more immediate concerns. The decade saw the beginnings of a cultural revolution that would unfold in the years to come. As children of the 1950s grew into adulthood, they would become catalysts for change, challenging the status quo and advocating for equality and justice. Growing up in the 1950s was characterized by simplicity, community, and a strong sense of belonging. The world felt
That's
safer and more
important.
predictable, with children able to explore their neighborhoods and make lasting friendships. The emphasis on family values, education, and creativity laid the foundation for the future, shaping the experiences of a generation. The nostalgia for this era remains palpable, as many people look back on their childhoods with fondness. The memories of outdoor play, family gatherings, and the excitement of new music and television shows create a rich tapestry of experiences that continue to resonate today. Being a child in the 1950s was a unique experience defined by cultural, social, and technological
the ice cream,
influences.
man.
The blend of traditional values and the burgeoning youth culture created a rich environment for personal growth and exploration. As this generation navigated the joys and challenges of childhood, they unknowingly set the stage for the transformative changes that would follow in the decades ahead. Recollection.
Yeah, that's nice. Of course, a very romanticized view of it with a lot of nostalgia. Like I said, the brain is really good in selecting uh, different parts and sometimes leaving out others. But of course, we can't deny this, like the family values, strong connection, less technology, more simplicity. That is something we are all craving at the moment. But of course, it's not possible to disconnect completely to get back to that. So it's a tough thing to deal with. And yeah, it looks really great, and I'm happy for the people who lived it. But I guess like me, I'm in Belgium. The 1950s in Europe must have looked very, very different than the 1950s in the US, right? If you think you go to the year 1950, that's 5 years after World War II, and Europe looked different. You can't deny that. So, yeah, you have to build back up and all of that. So, very, very different. Like I said, we have a lot of stuff that have been featured in these videos from the 60s and 70s. We only had a lot of these things in the 90s, the 80s and 90s. So it wasn't like today that everything gets released at the same time. I remember, like things coming over from the US. It always took a few years in the 90s. So I guess that gap was a lot bigger in the 50s and the 60s, and it always became smaller and smaller till what it is today, and we have everything instantly. When something comes out, it's almost instantaneous. uh, so I'm very fortunate. I consider myself very fortunate that I still had a little bit of the taste at what we're seeing here in these videos, that simplicity. Not entirely, there's a lot of other stuff that wasn't there in the 90s, was gone, or stuff that was there that made it easier to communicate or to travel, whatever it is. But I'm very fortunate that the formative years were really pre-internet days, and definitely pre-smartphone, because I was 20 years old when the iPhone came out. So uh, I consider myself fortunate in that way. But kids today are definitely gonna have to learn to grow up in a world with all of that stuff, and navigate their way through life with it. It's just part of their lives. It has been since birth, and it will always be that way. Yeah. Unless total blackout ensues, and we're gonna get back to making fire, and then I'm totally screwed. Thank you for being here. Peace.